Welcome back once again. This is Rod Powell on the You Should Get a License podcast edition, your number one source for information, education, and inspiration on the most underrated career opportunity in business today. That is a career in insurance and financial services. Very excited about our guest today. This young woman is a 22-year veteran professional in this business. And what's really exciting is, many times, when we're speaking to guests on the platform, we're talking to agents or we're talking to people who are in sales capacities that are independent, that are working in an area where there may be familiarity as far as, what you may have seen, just if you're someone who's, going down the street and you see your local, Allstate or State Farm office. But she works in a field, one, employee benefits that we don't get to talk to a lot of people in, and two, on the corporate level as an executive, which is also a very powerful place to be as well, and really doing business in a big way, doing some major things, very involved, not only on the professional business side, but very involved on the community side. With NAIA, National African American Insurance Association. I want to welcome to the platform a good friend of mine, a great friend of yours as well. After this conversation, Miss Natasha Dorsey. Natasha, how you doing?
Ooh, I'm good now. Ooh, that was nice.
Yes. No, look, excited to have you here. I feel like, there's probably about 4 or 5 different conversations, on this platform where I say, yeah, we met through Ngazi. But I met you through Ngazi as well. She's always the connection there. And, the Black Friday event in DC. Before we kind of jump into our conversation, I just want to take a minute because what you do is a little bit different. If you could just share, on our platform, what area of the industry do you specialize in? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? And how's your workflow look?
Sure. So I am a consultant for the number 2 global consulting firm. I'm not going to say their name because, I didn't get permission. But as a consultant, I work with employers and we work with all the different carriers to find them the best rates for benefits. Strategy is big time for us. There's so many things in the benefits arena and constantly you're hearing from employees. My employer doesn't offer good benefits, right? This is what we're here to do, to show them what's going on in the marketplace, what carriers are doing, what their rating is. Would we recommend writing business with them? It's a huge relationship-driven organization. We have to constantly talk to HR and help them through anything like from health insurance all the way down to the voluntary benefit critical illness policy. So everything benefits, medical, dental, vision, life, disability, work site stuff, which is like critical illness, accident, whole life insurance. And there's so many other things that are popping up. Like I spend a lot of time on pet insurance, things like that. They're coming out because during COVID, obviously people got their new kids are pets and the pets are now plants. So there may be a benefit for plants eventually, but that's the benefit space. And I would say Q4, which is now, is the time where there are no 40-hour work weeks. You're working until you're done. Not necessarily that's the ask, but in order to get open enrollments, taking care of benefit guides out in the hands of employees so they can make their decisions, which is once a year and very important, we have to spend the time and the hours and make sure we're peer reviewing everything and putting in that effort for the volume.
Yeah, no, look, that's a lot, right? It's a lot. I mean, normally when we think about insurance, whether it be, life insurance or we think about health insurance, we think about it, from an individualistic standpoint, right? Auto insurance, homeowners insurance, you're thinking of it from an individualistic standpoint. But where you're working with organizations. You're trying to really look at the bigger picture of everyone there. How would you kind of explain the difference between working with groups versus working with individuals from your perspective?
So I've always been group. So from a rating perspective, you get way more advantage from the risk. You're spreading a risk amongst a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So from a life insurance perspective, I can speak personally. I have, car insurance and whole life with my auto insurance carrier, but they're underwriting just me. So they're taking a look at what's going on with Natasha. Is she dealing with any type of chronic illnesses? Should we, increase her premiums, because that claim is definitely going to happen, but may happen sooner than we predict it to happen. Whereas on the group side, we're taking a census from that employer group and we're sending it to the carriers, and they're rating based on the group. So there could be someone in the group who has, a chronic illness, may have a short life expectancy, but that insurance carrier is betting on, well, that one claim is not going to spin the group out of control and have terrible rates, because we're going to get healthy bodies in there, and the premiums, we can, put that in the stock market and make more money off of it to make that group sustainable. So that's more or less the comparison. And I would say it applies to every line of coverage. Health insurance obviously is out of control, which is why the federal government had to get involved with the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And, people that were buying the insurance needed it and they were using it. Those that don't were healthy, young, they're like, I don't need that. And we need the healthy mix to go with the unhealthy mix to make things a little bit more affordable. So that would be my comparison for group versus individual.
Absolutely. Okay. So so the company is saying, hey, look, instead of just looking at, Natasha, or just looking at Rod, they're saying, hey, look, we can look at, all 500 of these people and just kind of base it on the average and move forward accordingly.
Right.
I was mentioning before we started recording how your job, right? You're a vice president with an organization, consulting, working with large groups. You work for a very, very large corporation. But most people don't know that your job exists in this industry. Before I get into how you got into this space, because you've been around for a while, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But why don't people know that a career track like yours? Why is that not common knowledge? Why don't they know it exists?
So I'll correct my title, because anybody from my company watching, they're gonna be like, she ain't vice president. I'm assistant vice president.
Assistant AVP. Okay, all right. Right.
Apologies that I ain't tell him that. But anyway,
Right.
No,
I said it.
Make such a valid point, because I have family members that to this day ask me, you still work at the bank? I haven't worked at the bank since 1999. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't think that it's ever a topic of discussion. No one ever has asked me, what do you do? And how did you get into that field? It's, people like to talk about themselves most times. And especially in the Black community, I don't have any friends that, we sit and talk about this. I've had one person ask me in the 22 years about the Affordable Care Act, and I lit up and I'm like, oh my God, we're talking about that. I talked to an attorney one day and he was talking about, oh yeah, I want to learn about ERISA. And I lit up like, you know what ERISA is? Like, that's awesome, right? Because it isn't, and it's not interesting. Let's be honest. It's morbid. And I used to work for a life and disability insurance company for 10 years. So imagine going out and doing employee meetings and you're talking about life insurance. And no one wants to talk about that, but it's not if, it's when. Everyone has that date that it's going to happen. So we need to talk about it, and we need to know, like, hey, your employer is providing this for you as part of your total rewards. Yay, employer, right? Mm-hmm. And you could leave a legacy. You could put your kid's name down, your wife, husband, whomever, spouse, as a beneficiary to help continue the legacy after you're here, to be that lump sum of money to continue to pay the bills, college tuition, mortgages, so on and so forth. And I got heckled a lot. There was always one employee in the audience like, this is morbid. You have to spice it up a little bit. So I don't think that people find it interesting. And as I mentioned before we got on the podcast, I feel like there's been a shift since COVID. I am very happy being an employee. I feel like I'm heard. I feel like I'm learning so much, where it felt before like stuff was hidden from me and I couldn't learn it because they didn't want me to learn it.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to share. And I ain't gonna say probably, I was always upset after work. So I don't think people wanted to talk to me about what I do. My son, I have a son who's 23 today. It's his birthday. And
Happy birthday, 23.
yeah, every day I would come home exhausted and upset. And, it was a trying day. So you think he wants to hear about insurance as a career path? Absolutely not. So I would say, anyone watching this, hit me up on LinkedIn. I mean, insurance is a very lucrative career and you can learn so much, and it's vast, right? I'm in benefits and you could get lost in benefits alone. I don't even know risk. I want to learn risk. I want to learn personal lines, I wish I knew how to read my car insurance. I'm just taking it because I have to, I could be underinsured. I could be overinsured.
Right.
So it's definitely a career path that I would recommend. But I would say 3, 4, 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have. But things are changing.
I think that you said something in kind of speaking about explaining, what you do to people. I think it's a thing of individuals. When you're talking to companies and they're thinking about insurance, right? And they're thinking about putting their plans together, they're looking at it from a standpoint of how is this going to improve our operations, right? How is it going to enhance, our retention, our employee morale, productivity? How is it going to help our bottom line? And
that's number one.
That's number one, right? At the top is, hey, what kind of percentage increase are we getting this year, or can we not get, right? That's where the voluntary comes in. I'm a voluntary guy, so right. But individuals, I think in today's climate, do you feel like the employees are more receptive to what the companies are offering? Like from a standpoint of, are they seeing it in some of the same ways, like outside of just being life insurance, but with the conversations about generational wealth? And you mentioned the word legacy. That's why I wanted to bring that up. Like with the conversations about legacy and establishing that for the future and really utilizing your benefits or utilizing your insurance in such a way where it's going to ultimately improve the quality of your life. Are you seeing that as more of an impactful maybe topic that makes the conversation more receptive to employers and to employees for that matter?
Great question, honestly. So since I've been in the business for 22 years, the way that we do open enrollment meetings has shifted. COVID really put a damper on that. So I did a lot of in-person meetings where I would fly across country to certain facilities where I had employer groups that had multiple locations, and I would go to all of their locations throughout the United States. And people would come to those meetings and they would sit in the meetings and they would ask questions, because that's your one time a year to, unless you have a family status change, to delve into what the offering is. And the employer probably made some changes because you mentioned bottom line, rates do increase. They're not necessarily going down, which I've seen it happen before, but not often. But since COVID, we've switched to online meetings. Where I work now, I haven't personally done any meetings, and I enjoy presenting, because what I find is when you're one-on-one, because we have what we call the big meeting where everyone's sitting in a room, and then we have office hours where an employee can come in and sit with me one-on-one and just ask me questions without everyone at their job knowing what they want to ask me. That's gone. But there's some that still do it, but I haven't personally had that experience in the past year where I've gone out and done an in-person meeting. And then we also have virtual systems where you go on and you just click what you want. There's PowerPoint presentations, there's webinars. I don't feel like, I know we have to get away from all the traveling and all of that in the face-to-face meetings, but it's very hard to get through to people, because what I hear talking to my friends and just by happenstance, because obviously every Q4 has been hard. It's busy. And I talk to people and I'm like, so are you doing open enrollment? And they're like, I don't care about that. I'll just pick a plan. And I'm like, do you realize what goes into this? The hours upon hours of meetings that I have with human resources, that they're going through the benefit guide with a fine-tooth comb, that we're sending it back to our design team for a million iterations, that there's like smoke coming out of everyone's ears. We're trying to program the system to make sure it works. To hear that is discouraging. Yeah. The other thing that I hear that upsets me is, oh, my benefits suck. Well, that's not true. Your benefits may not look like the way your benefits looked when you worked for a younger organization, right? As I said earlier, there were no rules prior to the Affordable Care Act where you had to have health insurance. So if you're working for an organization and the average age is 50, your premiums are probably going to be high and your benefits are probably not going to be the greatest, right? That does not mean your benefits suck. Does not mean the insurance company sucks. It's the plan that your employer could afford to pick for that company.
Yeah.
The broker is like, we go to bat for these employers. I get renewals and I'm negotiating with these carriers. And that's what comes down to relationships. I used to be on the carrier side. I've been yelled at by brokers. I realized I don't want to be that broker. So I'm like, look, make my job easier. You know what I need, right? Come on, what can you do to make this better for them? And I have to make a good case. I have to look at the benefits. I have to look at the claims. I have to look at a lot to make it an argument for them to come down off the percentage increase. And that's what employees don't understand. It's not, you may make $100,000 a year, but your employer is paying probably $25,000 for your benefits.
Absolutely.
So your total compensation might be $150 if you throw in benefits and then 401k, which is not my area, and then and other things, right? So that part is a little discouraging. But I mean, with evolution, who knows? There may be some way to get people to see like, oh, this is great, but the in-person meetings are dwindling.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like the in-person piece is certainly a big component of making sure that people are educated about how they can properly utilize those benefits versus just click. Right. I'm gonna just pick the cheapest. You're right.
Right. It sucks. Did you read?
Right. See your options.
2 weeks.
But going back to another comment that you had just made, you say, hey, look, getting into this career, it doesn't seem exciting. It seems kind of dull, like from the outside looking in. Yeah. But I mean, you just meant, hey, you're traveling around from place to place, even post pandemic era, still having to have those conversations with the carriers, back and forth, talking to the HR people. Look, I know there's hey, we're hitting a dinner, we're hitting an event, right, sporting event, there's some elements of excitement there.
Yeah.
There's some elements of excitement there that people miss, along the way. Yeah. I like to think of it like what you do. You mentioned, you said I'm a consultant. It's a strategy. Like when you say consultant, what do you mean? Like for someone who is like, well, what does she do as a consultant? This is the chance. Because I know when you say what you do and you say, hey, look, I'm a benefits consultant, people say to you, do you do life insurance?
Yeah. Yes.
You do life insurance?
Yes.
What does it mean to be a benefits consultant?
A benefit consultant, you have to really be learning every day. Mm-hmm. You have to learn your client, first of all. What are they doing? What is their why? Right? What's their budget? What is their employee demographic? What are they looking to do? Because a lot of times they don't know, right? They probably like, look, we need to save on costs, but we want the best total rewards for our employees. What does that mean? As a consultant, I need to know not only my clients, I need to know what's out in the marketplace, right? Where are their employees located? Can I put in a Kaiser plan in their regional and they've got people in remote areas? Probably not. Or I could put in a major medical plan and slice it with Kaiser for those who would appreciate an HMO that live in the areas like California and the DMV where I am. It might be beneficial. There could be other things like they have executives, they're having a lot of turnover. Are there any executive plans that we could put in place to retain or even attract employees like that to their organization? Are they hiring a bunch of younger folks? You got to look at the demographics. What type of benefits are attracted to them? They're not really that concerned about health insurance, but they might want some voluntary worksite benefits. They may want something like, pet insurance. I was in California a couple of years ago, and they constantly had evolution. They had a mobile gas program that they were putting in for employee benefits, where if you worked in a building that didn't have a garage, the mobile gas would come around and fill your tank up for you. And it was 2 cents cheaper than the nearest gas station. If you needed windshield wiper blades replaced, they would do that. If you needed air in your tires, they would do that. They had like an Uber for kids that you could put in as an employee benefit program, massage benefits. So you have to know what all is available. Has it been vetted? Can you contract with them? How long will implementation take? Because obviously that's going to take up HR's time, right? Can it fit on their Ben admin system? Is there a direct connection? So there's a lot that goes into it. I can't just sit down in front of an employer, a CHRO and a CEO and a CFO and say, you should put in this benefit, and not have every question already in mind to speak educationally and, to them to say, hey, I know what this is, and I've vetted it, and I've even put it in for another employer, and this is how it went. And if you want to talk to them as a reference, I'll definitely ask them. So that's pretty much what, a consultant does, is you just got to make sure you know your clients and understand strategy and be on top of strategy. And then you also know to go to when stuff breaks.
That's right. Right. That's right. So really just kind of you need to have a holistic, approach, to doing business. Here's what I hear, right? There's a term, if someone is working in an organization, but they're still working independently. It's slipping my mind right now. But you really still have kind of the autonomy, of an entrepreneur for all intents and purposes. But you have the resources of an organization to go to a company and say, hey, look, I've identified, based on our conversation, based on our relationship, here's some things that could assist you. But instead of me as a, entrepreneur saying that I need to have all of this stuff myself, pay for it myself, bring it to bear, I have this entire suite of resources that can be utilized via the organization, that I work for, but I still work, independently. So you kind of get a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I do. I thank you for bringing that to my attention, because, we tend to overlook things that we should be grateful for. But yes, this organization has a ton of resources, and there will be times that I don't know what's going on, and I can bring in another subject matter expert to talk to my client, and my client trusts that I'm bringing in the right person, right? Absolutely. That I'm not going to just lollygag and tell you what I think I know. I'm going to bring someone on. And, as you can see, one of the examples of this would be all the states and territories within states are coming up with the best leave programs. It's almost like they're competing. Paid family leave here, there, and everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. I cannot say I'm an expert on that, even though I've come from the life and disability side, but that's been almost, 10 years now. And things have changed a lot since then. Even the state of Maryland, where I am, is coming out with a paid family leave program. I am not going to go in front of my client and say, yeah, this is this, and this. And then 10 questions come out and I'm like, I'm not sure, I'll have to get back to you on that. Right. I'm going to go get the people from my organization that's all they do.
That's right.
As far as like vetting carriers and all that, there's a department that already does that. Like I know there's people within our chapter and all that are doing things and they want to bring their business to us. I can't do anything with that. There's a special team that will vet you if you're a new carrier, that will put you on a panel and all that. So that's already being handled. When I want to market something, I put it with that special department. They go out, they market it, they spreadsheet it, they package it in a nice presentation for me to review, make edits, changes to it, and then to present to my clients. So yes, that is absolutely a blessing.
You're the plug. For a business owner, you are the plug.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
You know, what do you need? You go see Natasha. She's going to make sure you got what you need. And I want to kind of bring that up because, you know, for someone, you know, this platform, you know, we have people who are agents, right? The only career track they may know is selling life insurance, selling PNC. It may be, you know, individuals who are maybe thinking about getting into the industry. Maybe they heard about it somewhere, or, you know, maybe when they think of work sites, they only think of, you know, the sub-health companies, or maybe they only think of, you know, Medicare, you know, like there's always more in this industry than what you think there is, right? So when someone looks at you, they can say, man, okay, I could do that. If you want to interact and mingle with, you know, business leaders pretty much on a regular basis, if you want to be the go-to person, you know, for those decision makers, if you want to really be detailed in strategy as a business-minded individual, then you have kind of the perfect career track to be able to do that. And you know, it's a very lucrative. Now, look, I ain't trying to count your money, but I know consultants do well. You know, it's a lucrative career path as well. Let's go back. Let's rewind. Let's go all the way back pre-insurance. You know, growing up, take me back. You know, 9-10-year-old Natasha Dorsey. What were you dreaming about being when you grew up? What were you going to be when you grew up?
You know, I used to mimic my mom. My mom was a realtor when I was a kid, and she took me to work with her a couple times. And I remember seeing, you know, the notepad, the pen, and she had this big stamp that said paid. And I took some of that stuff home, you know, and I would be in my office stamping paid on everything and writing and talking to my imaginary clients. And I just always like wanted to teach. I used to always make pretend I was a teacher as well. And my mom used to say, even as a toddler, I was always precocious, advanced for my age, just wanting to learn and grow and be somebody, you know, when I grew up. So that was me. But obviously, you know, coming up in the 80s, we were told things like, don't go to HBCU, you won't get a good job. You know, your name is fine because your resume will make it to the door of that organization. Natasha's a Russian name. What else were HBCU? So we were prepared for the hardships that we would face being Black, having a Black name, going to a Black school when trying to get a good job. But no one ever taught me how to handle my emotions and responses in situations as such. And I can say I'm still here. Mm-hmm. So somebody was praying for me, some ancestors or something, because there were, with any organization, racial disparities within our organizations, lots of microaggressions. And like I said, I always wanted to learn, always wanted to grow, but it felt like, no, stay in your lane, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to raise my son in a nice neighborhood and not Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore has some nice neighborhoods, right? You do, yeah. But from the salary that I had at that time, I wanted to do better. I wanted him to go to better schools. I imagined him being able to shoot a basketball in front of the house in the garage, but that was never an opportunity for me to afford it. But other colleagues that didn't look like me had that, including pools in their backyard. So but that was growing up, and that was, with the shift in COVID and everything, I think things have changed. Our voices are being heard. There's actually survey data about the disparities in the insurance industry. And, it feels good to know that we're being heard. And the organization that I work for now, speeding ahead, but we'll go back again to tell you about how I got licensed.
Yeah.
They are very supportive. I am able to be my true, authentic self. My team is amazing. They support my initiatives with NAYA. So it's 180. And I want more people to be a part of. They have an apprenticeship program. A lot of agencies are doing that too, where they're paying for students to go to school, not just based on ethnicity. But at my agency, looks like we're doing pretty good with bringing people of color in, Yeah. And they're paying for them to go to school while working at the organization. And then afterwards, after they graduate, then they will offer them an opportunity. So it was huge. Jill Biden was at our organization like last week, I think, for this apprenticeship. Yeah, like major things happening. Another thing, we were in a training at my job like 2 weeks ago, and I looked around the room, and in my entire career, there has only ever been maybe one Black male at the organizations that I've worked for, and maybe a handful of Black women. In that room, it was like 3 Black men and like 7 Black women. It was like 25 of us. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they're not in administrative roles, right? Some of them were, part of the apprenticeship program, but there were like assistant vice presidents, vice presidents, like senior vice presidents. This organization is walking the walk and talking the talk, and, helping me to get more so away from that, I'm Black and they treated me different, to now, hey, I want to talk to anybody that's coming out of, HBCU or any college of that fact. Like, we all need to bring up the next generation of individuals, of employees, to carry the torch, and should be diverse, every ethnic group, every, gender, however you identify. Like, this is a great career opportunity or entrepreneurship opportunity if they listen to your podcast.
Look, entrepreneurship or corporate growth. I'm very mindful of, listen, when I speak about getting a license, I just did a meeting with NAYA St. Louis chapter. And we had a collaborative event. And what we were talking about is, how getting that license can help you on your corporate career track. So whereas, for me, I feel like, for me, I'm like, hey, it could be an entrepreneurial track, but I also feel, because I worked on the corporate side too, that if I didn't have the license, if I didn't have, the prior experiences, I wouldn't have been able to move in that direction either. And I also understand that, hey, if I decide that I wanted to pivot back, the licenses and designations I have give me the flexibility to be able to do that too. So I think it's about, just kind of finding, your groove, and finding where you can make that impact in the industry as a whole, because we all aren't going to do it from the entrepreneurial side. I don't think we're all going to do it from the corporate side too, but we have to work within the organizations that, really kind of run and determine the direction that the industry is going as well. And how do we help determine the direction if we're not voices, kind of at those tables? We can't do it on the outside. So, it can go both ways. This is for everybody, right?
Let's go back in time again. I came forward.
Yeah. Let's go back. Let's go through that journey, because where you are now, even in feeling, the acceptance. I'll say acceptance. I mean, I know, just from what I know of you, you're going to be comfortable in being who you are in any environment, and you're always going to shine. You're always going to do what's necessary to be excellent. But going back 22 years, how did we get to this place? Because I know it hasn't always been the same, Yeah.
Well, besides trying to be like my mom, I also tried to start a singing group with my cousin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I heard. I wanted to hear some of that too. Yeah.
I love singing. I love music. I used to record myself singing, like harmonizing, right? And record over it with harmonizing. that was kind of cool, but that didn't work out. Yeah, LA Reid never got back to me. I sent them a letter, you know, it never happened, but
his loss.
Yeah, his loss. So it was. But yeah, I had a friend who was working for a life and disability carrier. I went to high school with her, and she told me about the job. And I had just had my son. He was 6 months old, and I was working for a bank, and I hated it. I hated it. They kept us at work long, recounting the vault, just to track, you know, hours. They wanted them hours to be on their check, period. Right. And I'm like, look, I need to go. Right. But the name of the bank was kind of similar to the carrier that I was applying to. And I'm like, oh my God, is that the same company? Like, is it going to be bad? But it ended up not being the same company. And it was a great opportunity for me. I had to drive at least 30 minutes one way. And I remember pulling up as a 20-year-old to this corporate office park with mirrored windows. And I'm riding the elevator up, and I've got my own cubicle with my own phone line, business cards, the big white IBM computer, had a typewriter. We're talking 2000, okay? I think it was May 25th or something, 2000, who knows? But I came in as a data entry specialist. And one of the things that I remember is vividly is we had monthly Monday sales meetings where everyone in the office came, and the lead of that office, I don't know what the titles were, but he was like an executive sales director of the office. He had this spirit about him, like we were winning, but I didn't know what we were doing to win, because all I did was key in data all day, right? But they made us feel like we were part of a winning team. And then, you know, they would talk about the sales metrics, where we were as far as our goals. They used a lot of bureaucratic language in the sales world. And I'm like, I want to know what that is. Like, I've always been that way. Yeah. But I won like sweatshirts and cups, and I walked away with stuff over the years. But I was in that role for 6 months, and the census started coming less and less. And I'm like, oh gosh, this isn't good. What does this mean? Right. And I filed on the filing cabinet, which is also obsolete now. We have everything electronic. And I would file. And then I started walking around and talking to people like, what do you do? Because I still didn't know what we did to win. I didn't know I worked for an insurance company. I just knew I did data entry, right? I'm 20, right? Remember when you were 20? Just put yourself in my. And so I would walk around, and people were like, you know, I'm busy. But let some gossip pop off. They'll turn around. Yeah, you hear? Oh, yeah, right? I just want to know what you do. I want to job shadow you. But that wasn't interesting enough for them to stop what they were doing. And so I got up the courage to go to my boss. And that was another thing, like being Black and young, like leave the boss alone. You want to stay away from the boss, because the boss, you talk to the boss, they're going to think you're trying to leave, and then they'll help you leave. I don't want to lose this job. I really like this corporate feeling that I have. I have my own business cards. I'm important. And I went to her, and I had a ton of time on my hands. I've read the value proposition of the company about how to do developmental plans and career pathing. I've read all of that. But then I got discouraged and started, before I met with the manager, I started calling out. I would come in, I would be on the internet, I'd be on personal calls. And I'm the type of person where I know when I'm messing up, and I don't, if someone has to tell me they noticed, now that's the nail in my coffin. I feel horrible. Yeah. So I went to her, and it took so many rehearsals in the mirror to get up the courage to go in there with my story. And I just went to her and I said, you know, I really like working here, and I feel like I'm a part of a winning organization, but I would love to know if there are other opportunities to be more of a contributor. And she looked at me and said, you have to be in that role for 18 months. That's it. And I was like, okay. And I walked out of her office like, okay, now she's going to think I'm looking for another job. And I'm anxiety in my head. And I'm like, they're going to eliminate this role. Like, there's no way. And there was another person in that role too. So I'm like, there's two of us, and we're getting probably 3 census data to input a week. You can knock that out in minutes, right? Yeah. So that manager ended up being transferred because she had a military spouse, and there was another person that was internally promoted. And she was one of the ones I would go to and ask, like, what do you do? Tell me what you do. Well, she got it done. So I got promoted. after being in the data entry role for 9 months, not 18. And
Right.
shortly thereafter, they rolled out this new system that allowed brokers to email the census and it would upload into the system. But I never knew where that data went. I didn't know, like it goes here and then it goes there and then this is how it happens. I knew nothing. So this role I got in was an assistant, and I was an assistant to consultants who had a book of business, would go out on the road. And while they're on the road, I kept the show going. And we printed a lot back then, typed correspondence. And there was one girl who I still talk to this day. She was the one person that probably is the reason why I'm still in the industry, because she gave me feedback in real time, which is huge, because a lot of the places that I've worked, a lot of my colleagues that were lead in positions, they went to my manager instead of coming to me. So I wouldn't find out about whatever I did wrong until review time, when they're analyzing the little $1,500 bonus you're going to get that gets taxed anyway. And that would mean that it would be less than $1,500 because I made mistakes that I didn't even know about, right? This one woman was so good with me that I even went back to school, because I'm like, I have to finish college, because in order for me to write good correspondence and do well at this company, I've got to do better. I've got to learn more. And I took business courses to learn what they were talking about in these sales meetings and everything. Fast forward, the third position I got promoted to, the second position I got promoted to, because I was data entry, then an assistant, then I became an account specialist. I had my own book of business now. And this was after 3 years being with the organization. And I felt important. I now could talk directly to clients. I now could go out on the road and meet with them. And I remember there was this older lady that was promoting to a consultant role that I used to be the assistant for. And she was freaking out because she had to take that licensing exam. Mm. And I went through the pain and suffering with this lady. You know, she talked about down to like the bubble guts. Like, I can't keep nothing down. I'm nervous. Every time I keep taking the practice test, I keep failing. I don't know. I really need this job. And they've been hiring younger people. I don't need this to be the catalyst for me to lose this job. And she wasn't a woman of color, but I get along with everybody. And I went through that roller coaster ride with her. And when she passed, we celebrated softly in her cubicle. And I thought to myself, because I got promoted twice, but I still went through a lot. Whereas like, yeah, you need to get a degree, you need this, you need that. Like every time I went to them for other opportunities, it was disheartening to say the least. And so I decided on my own, with my own money, which was not a lot of free money to spare. My husband and I were struggling with a child. I decided to go take the course and to go get licensed. But I didn't tell my job, because I thought they would discourage me and say, we're not paying for that because it's not part of your position. Right? So I went, I got up 3 Saturdays in a row, drove 30 minutes north to a community college. The professor taught the exam. I scheduled the exam, but then it was, oh man, I got to leave work early for this. I got to tell my boss, or I've got to ask permission. Well, by this time I'm on my 4th manager. And she was cool. She had an HR background and very paternalistic, but had been burned so many times. I was scared of her too. Right. But I told her, I was like, I need to leave early today. She's like, why? What's going on? I said, I'm taking a test. And she was like, what kind of test? The licensing exam. She was like, what? Oh my God, why did you tell me? Well, is the job paying for it? I was like, I didn't tell anybody. Why not? I'm like, I just want to see if I can do it on my own. She was like, okay, I tell you what, if you want me to know if you passed, let me know. She said, but we are paying for this and we're paying for the courses that you took. I'm like, really? She was like, yeah. So I went, and I am horrible as a student. I failed tests because of my testing anxiety. I passed that test on the first try. What? So I'm on the highway and I called her and I was like, I passed. She screamed. And I thought I had to go back to work. So I passed my house to go back to work. She had already emailed the entire office. And would you know, everyone in that position, it was probably like 5 or 6 others, were so inspired, they also took that class and they also got licensed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's who I am as a person. I'm genuinely happy. I'm an empath. I take on other people's energy. I like happy
You should
energy.
have started this platform, you know? You should get
Yeah.
you got you inspired the whole office to get licensed.
Yeah, but like I'm like, I've already gone through
That's awesome.
the hills and the valleys with this lady. So I might as well do it myself. But you know, the culture in that organization at that time was very toxic. But the organization itself was amazing. Like I said, I read their value proposition. I read the benefits. I'm the one that knew, like, wait, my benefits are amazing, right? There's so many things that they offer. They had different positions that I could have gone to, but it was leadership that had that mind frame of, she want more money, let's not pay her. I mean, there were several times that the salary band changed and my salary was under it, and they bumped me up just maybe $200 over the base. Things like that, you know? So, but we're not going to discourage anybody. That was the past, this old ancient time.
That's right, that's right. But you took action into your own hands, right? You said, look, I don't, listen, y'all don't have to open the door for me because I'm going to open the door for myself.
Oh, I'm kicking the door in.
I'm kicking the door in. Right. I'm kicking the door in.
And I got my fold out table. I got my own table.
And you know what? That's a, you know, that's a powerful lesson, you know, for anyone to take and own, right? Because look, it's not going to be handed to you. And a lot of times, you know, people might be jealous of what they see in you. You know, so you got to be mindful. You have to be mindful in every environment that you're in, that if you want something, you know, you got to go ahead and go get it. You got to put yourself out there for it as well. And, you know, I applaud you, you know, for taking those steps outside of the gig. You didn't tell anybody what you were doing. You're like, look, hey, look, you were moving like a ninja. You're like, hey, I'm just going to do this, get this thing going. And you know what? You'll find out when it's done. I mean, now you know, like the day of, you'll find out the day of. And I mean, I think that's a part of the reason why, you know, you've been able to build to the point you are now. And I know even now, you know, by, you know, in our conversations, you're still kind of just at the beginning of where you're ultimately going, even with your successes. So I applaud you for it. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. I forgot all about that until I was prepared. So I was like, wow, that did happen. You know, and I'm sure that as, you know, part of the job description, because there was no reason why we were out doing meetings and not licensed. Yeah. But yeah, that was definitely a big deal.
Inspired others. You know, I think that can't be dismissed as well. You never know, you know, who's watching. You never know who's paying attention, you know, to the moves that you're making and how they might be motivated, you know, to go down a certain path because of the moves that you made. That's an incredible contribution. That's an incredible contribution. So continue the progression, because I want to get to the place where you are now, you know, in your career. And then, you know, I really want to talk about like what's next, you know, like I want to know where you're going.
Okay. Well, I don't know, but I guess it'll come out as I'm talking. Right. So from there, the organization that I worked for had some bad press. And as a result, you know, Elliot Spitzer did his thing and they had to lay off a ton of people at that organization. I wasn't one of them, but I was recruited by another life and disability carrier. And I went there for 2 years and faced similar things that just didn't feel good. Back then it was like a big deal to work from home. And my son had asthma, so I would be off in the hospital with him and I can't do anything, right? I'm there with him, but I could literally be keeping the show on the road with a laptop. And it was like I was asking for something special, like special permission, special privilege. I left that organization because the first organization called me to come back. And I thought that was an honor because I went to their competitor. But I needed more money because I was going through a divorce. And I didn't want to tell everybody like, oh yeah, I need more money. I'm going to, because that's what they thought I needed anyway. It was like, I walked around with the she needs more money on her forehead. And no, I want to contribute more. I want to learn more. I know I'm capable of more.
Right.
But you're going to compensate me as well, right? That like, I'm not like, I don't know what I want to do, but I need more money. Like that was never me.
Right.
Still. So I went and interviewed back at the old organization, and I was very passionate about it. The way they trained us was like no other. Like other agencies and carriers have poached from that carrier because the training was so good.
Mm.
And I was gone for almost 2 years. And I remember getting the job again, came back in the same role. And the new manager I'd never met, first thing she said was, we still don't offer work from home. I'm like, was that in my file? Like, what was going on? Right? Like, okay, cool. It's crazy.
I tell you, the world pre-2020. I just
man.
right.
But I remember going and sitting down at my cubicle and running through the systems like it never left. It was ingrained in me, and I felt happy I was home. Right? Yes, y'all abused me, but I was home. And maybe this time around it'd be different, but it wasn't. There was a promotion opportunity there as well to become a senior account specialist. And I got dinged for one thing that wasn't even my full metric. So I'll tell you briefly what that was, and so you can have context. But at this organization, when the sales rep goes to the broker firm, you give them an application, right? And let's say today is November 28th, and the broker is at your organization, and they're like, okay, when do you want this coverage to start? You'll say November 1st, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's backdate it. Okay. And then you sign it that you've signed to November 1st as well. Well, I had 30 days to get this in the system, contract printed and all, for it to count as me meeting my metric.
Okay.
Right. So today is the 28th, but you as the broker signed that document because your sales rep told you you want it to be effective November 1st, and you signed it. You signed it also on November 1st, right? You also got a binder check. Binder checks take, back then, I don't know if they do that anymore, 10 days minimum to clear with the bank. So even if I did manage to code all the provisions in the system would not allow me to press submit because the binder hasn't cleared. Mm-hmm. So I'm already maybe 12 days late on that metric, and that's how I got dinged.
Got you.
Okay. So I always knew, like, this isn't fair, but who was listening to me? Nobody. I had no voice. So I finally got promoted, and I had managers that I'm still friends with several of my former managers, and they would go to bat for me, and they paid handsomely in a bad way for it. Not necessarily just for me, but for being good managers and going against what these other bad managers were trying to do. And so I remember working for this organization as a senior account specialist, and I wanted to promote again. I wanted to be a consultant. Remember, I was an assistant. Mm-hmm. Oh, they made sure that I wasn't going to get that. And the organization was going through reorg again because the Affordable Care Act had started. Mm-hmm. But now we're in 2012, as they were hoping that the Supreme Court would have kicked it out.
Got you. But it's kicking out. It's rolling into law now. Yeah.
Correct. But this was before that, the Supreme Court thing. And so this organization was eliminated all of their original positions and put in new positions, but they weren't telling people how many positions were available. And from what I found out later, was secretly tapping the ones they wanted to keep. Mm-hmm. Everyone else had to meet with the head of the office to talk about options. And this man made me feel like crap every week. It was like a demotivation session. All of my reviews were raving, but he'd be like, "No, you're not as great as you think you are," but oh yeah, things like that. And the same girl. Let's go back to the woman who gave me feedback in real time and who taught me and inspired me to go back to school. She didn't tell me to go back to school, but from her feedback, I'm like, I gotta go to college. Yeah. She was laid off from that organization, and she was calling to check on me and said, "Something's up because you're not talking." She said, "You want me to help you look for another job?" And I said, "Yes." And she's like, "Say no more." She sent me a resume template, said, "Give me your resume. I'm going to send it to the number 3 global brokerage firm." I'm like, yeah, all right. Oh, whatever. Like this broker, I'm like, every time I emailed them, I double, triple, quadruple check to make sure everything was straight, because they were like the pinnacle of brokers, right? One of them. So when she said that, I was like, yeah, that's funny, right? Like, they're not going to hire me. And she sent it. And one of the employees there called me on a Saturday and was like, oh, just want to let you know, I got your resume and, I want to meet with you. We're going to send you an email to schedule an interview. I'm like, this is happening. So I went and met with them, and it was very comfortable because being on the carrier side, I had been trained to meet with brokers. So it felt like a broker meeting, but I was talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it took. And not only did they hire me, they hired me as a senior client manager with no prior experience with medical, dental, vision, none of that. I just had life and disability. So that was 12 years into the industry. I moved over to the consulting side. And at that organization, trust me, that was a huge learning curve. Like with the Supreme Court thing, I learned ACA alongside of everyone at my organization because it was law. It's like, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But as far as financials, I never learned like how to read the spreadsheets and, the rate increases. And I would just go to the meetings and wait for my part and talk about service stuff. But I did the same thing there, raised my hand for more opportunities, and they weren't happening. But I did get one opportunity in 2016 to start a Toastmasters chapter. And it was for this agency, like, there's tons of a vast of insurance, right? So I'm in benefits. We have our own little corner in the office. They've got, risk, personal lines, all that, right? This man was over our office, Baltimore and Richmond. And I didn't even know he knew who I was. And he tapped me and said, I want you to get a Toastmasters demonstration meeting started. Like, if you could have seen this, like, I was so excited, but I couldn't show it. Like, he's giving me an opportunity. I cannot mess this up. Oh my God. So I reached out to Toastmasters National, set up the demonstration meeting. They came out, we did the meeting, and he was like, I want you to roll this out for our office.
And for Toastmasters, for those that don't know.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Because some people may have not have heard of Toastmasters. It's an organization that helps you with public speaking, right? It's a group, correct. Everybody gets together, does public speaking, correct?
Correct. Yes. And with the way I've been umming on this podcast, I need to take it again. But anyway. But started the chapter in our office, and this organization was like, we're not going to pay the dues. The employees are going to have to pay their own dues. I'm like, how am I going to get people to come,
Yeah.
So I had to put my spin on it. I'm like, we're going to do it. So this guy, he was the president of the chapter. I was vice president of education, and I had the rest of my executive board, and people would come. I had managers in our Toastmasters chapter, lots of sales, like producers, because the whole point was, like you said earlier, you say you're a consultant, people say, you sell life insurance? We have to be able to speak clearly, concisely, and give our elevator pitch as to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole reason for, him wanting to do it. But he also had a list of things he wanted to achieve that year, and Toastmasters was one of them. I didn't know this. And he was also trying to become a board member for the National Zoo. I didn't know that either. The lady that got me to this job said, do you know this man? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I just voted for him. I figured you knew him, right? So, but yeah, we had the meetings, and with Toastmasters, you have different speeches that you have to do. And a lot of the speeches helped us get to know our colleagues on a personal level. There were times that obviously we're at work, people that signed up for speeches, or the leadership track, which is the person that's counting the ums and ahs and timing you and doing the speech evaluations, they couldn't come because of a client commitment, right? Client fires you, Toastmasters have to wait. So I've had to give impromptu speeches, and these speeches are supposed to be crafted in a certain way. And so that helped me grow because it was under fire, that I had to make sure we filled that time because it was specific to an hour. And then I had a manager there who was on the risk side, and she was constantly hiring. And every time she hired a new employee, she sent them to me to meet and to say, hey, come to this demonstration meeting, see if you like it. And then they joined. Everybody was paying their dues. Everybody was showing up. I think 3 or 4 people completed all 10 speeches. And then what was great is this guy who ran our office, he couldn't really keep up with it. Like whenever he was in the office, he made sure to come, and it was during our lunch hour as well. But we merged with another big consultant firm, and we had our town hall meeting, and he announced, I had no idea, he announced that he was passing the torch to me as president. And everyone turned around like, oh my God. He said, me? Right? But long story short, I know it's a long story, but we ended up winning Distinguished Chapter of the Year because I got so many people through the club. We celebrated because I was planning to move to San Diego right after that. So we got all those people through the leadership track, and then the organization decided to start a chapter in their Baltimore office, and they were paying the dues then because they saw how successful it was. And my son even attended and said it was so much fun because I'm lively, right? Yes, doing speeches, you have to be serious, but we laughed. We helped each other. And every room you would go into, if you go to the lunchroom after a Toastmasters meeting, people were talking about the meeting. Yeah. You go to an event off-site, people were talking about Toastmasters. So everyone wanted to know what was up in Toastmasters because we were bonding, and it was like we had our own little gang, right? Like a good gang. Right. But yeah, like that was a huge opportunity for me. And I really appreciate him for seeing me, not as just an employee walking around, that he believed in me enough for me to pull that off.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved to California because I've always wanted to live on the West Coast where the weather's nice most of the time. And that's where my career went to the next level. And I went from the client manager position with different titles for the past 17 years to an account executive where I'm lead on the account. I've got a team behind me. Well, not behind me, beside me, because that's our client. Right. And we worked in collaboration to deliver to our clients and their employees. And that's the company I work for, that I got to travel all over the country. It was so dope. Like, I'm leaving San Diego, headed to ATL. Right. They even sent me back to Maryland. Like, I've been as far north as like Connecticut. Like, it's wild. Like it got better and better. But I came back to Maryland because I am the caregiver for my mother. She's disabled, so she needed to go into an assisted living facility. So I made the decision to come back, and it happened right as we all were shutting down the world. I moved home April 4th, 2020. There were 9 people on my plane from San Diego here.
Right, you got a flight.
Right.
13, you know?
Right. The amazing thing about that sidebar is that, yes, the world shut down, but everything that I needed to do didn't.
Wow.
It was, yeah. But I joined a boutique firm because I was desperate. I'm like, I need a job. I need to come back. I didn't have time to really like be picky about what I wanted to do. But that was a great opportunity because I got to see what it's like to work for those types of agencies as well. And it was like a family. And that I was the only person of color for almost the 2 years that I was there. I don't think I was there 2 years. It's like a year and some change. But they gave me autonomy. They respected me. They loved all the swag secrets I bought from California, like my negotiation techniques. They were using them. The teams, like, and I don't know where they get these people from, but they were hiring people that didn't have experience. They came in and were killing it. I mean, crushing it. And this is one of the things that I want to say about me as being, ambitious and precocious as a little toddler and young adult. I know passion. I can identify it when I see it. And the girls that I work with at that organization were passionate. And when they were feeling like they didn't do well, they would call me and they're like, I feel like I'm letting you down. And, And I would tell them, you're being too hard on yourself. I'm not upset with you because no one can drink from a fire hose. No one. I can't help you. We're both not going to be successful drinking from a fire hose, but we're going to do our best. So what I want to do is help you. And to this day, I've been gone. It'll be a year soon. And I still talk to them. I still meet with them because we became family and we serviced our clients together. They learned from me. I learned from them. That was the first time in my career where I felt heard and seen. And I recognized my passion and my willingness to learn and grow and them because they were like me, and then one of my Toastmasters became a manager at the organization I work for now. And he reached out to me and asked to meet, for lunch. And he asked how I was doing. And he said, you were a fearless leader at that company. And he said, how are you doing? And I said, I am okay. But after COVID, we started losing a lot of accounts, and I'm not used to that. Working for larger organizations, you might lose a group once a year or 2 a year, not 3 in a month, right? And I'm like, I feel like the walls are closing in. I might get laid off. I don't know. He said, can I do you a favor? I said, sure. He's like, I'm going to put you in touch with some folks where I work. And I'm like, okay. And he did. And I met with the local practice leader for where I work. And I felt like I was on Ashton Kutcher's old show, Punked, because the way he was telling me like all the things that I could do, because he looked at my resume and he's like, you could do this, you could do that. If you wanted to move back to the West Coast, you could. I'm like, what? Wow. Come on, man. Come on. And he's like, and you will come in as an officer of the company. What? No more fighting for a senior title? And I'm like, okay, it's Q4. I'm scared. I don't want to leave. I don't want to burn bridges. He's like, we'll wait for you. Yeah. So here I am. And where do I go from here? Well, because of the lack of learning, because I was held back, I feel like there's still so much more that I need to learn. And where I am, there's so many things that I could do, so many things I can learn, and I'm just completing a year and I am getting ready for strategy and all of that. So I'm not sure, but I want to get my PNC license. I'm putting it off because I'm not as young as I was. The Life and Health, that was in 2005, man.
You're still young enough. It's okay.
Look, I don't have time for the bubble guts and the nervousness, but yeah, I would love to be able to do that. I think that that's next, and to do more with Naya, more relationship building, learning more from you guys. Shout out to Ngozi, man, because she is the reason why I know you. She's the reason why I know about Naya. I will always forever be grateful for her connection. And that was me reaching out to her. I was scared. I was like, she ain't gonna respond to me. This woman is too good. But I'll say something else as a sidebar. And I want anyone who's watching this to know, like, seriously, if you want to talk to me about this industry, reach out on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid. Don't look at me and think, oh, she ain't gonna respond, because I know how that feels. When I was 17 years old, I remember vividly, I worked for KFC. I can say that organization because I don't work there no more. And I was on the little drive-through girl. And there was this woman that drove up to get her food. And I'll never forget, beautiful Black woman, long hair, wearing a bad suit, was driving a hunter green Beamer. Okay. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what do you do? But I can't ask her that. I have to stay within my script. You need any ketchup? Straw? And I'm looking at her like, can you please catch this look? Because I want to know, like, I'm at the crossroads. I'm about to graduate from high school. I don't know. My GPA is terrible. I'm not getting into any schools that I want to get into. What do you do? And she had an attitude. She had this look on her face like, just give me my food, And I'll never forget, she pulled off and I felt discouraged, like, dang, right? And she would come through there weekly and get her food. And I just imagine, like, if she had just opened it up, where I would have been like, wow, you're really pretty and you got it together. I would love to spend some time talking to you to get to know what you do, because I'm not sure what I want to do and I'm about to finish high school. And we could have had lunch at the table inside of KFC. But, who knows what she was going through, being a Black woman in whatever corporate organization she worked at, and was rushing to go get lunch. But that left a mark with me, because that experience almost prevented me from emailing Ngozi on LinkedIn.
She left a mark for you not to be that person.
Yes. Fear.
You know what I mean? Like, if who knows? It's like everything that you've shared, right? Even when you mentioned, these people were, making, even if someone was making an attempt to try to hold you back. You always found a way to say, you know what? I'm going to take that path myself.
Yep.
I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find this way myself. And once again, because of who you are, I would say intrinsically motivated to always be in a state of perpetual development, right? Since you're always on that train, it doesn't matter what anyone else is attempting to do, because you're always going to be able to maneuver through, above, around to get exactly where you are right now. All things in divine order. So
even with fear, yeah. But I'm getting old, so all that, just a little bit, just a little.
Only as old as you feel. Trust me, you're not old at all. Because if you're old, then I'm old. I'm not old. Because I think we're about the same age. So I'm not embracing.
we don't look like we're our age, so that's
right.
I tell everybody, I'm like, yeah, I don't look my age, and thank God the people that tried to destroy me and make me feel bad, it didn't come
Absolutely.
out. But yeah, but it does go somewhere. And to your listeners, again, anybody, if you have kids that are at a crossroads and not sure what they want to do, and you want to ping me on LinkedIn, I don't know what the handle is, but just go to Natasha Dorsey on LinkedIn. I will accept. I will talk to you. I'll schedule time with you, because it is important to know that people will listen, that people will give you advice. And I'm grateful for that friend who told me about that carrier, because there's no telling where I would be. And that sales manager, like all the characters throughout my career added value. Some did, to me continuing on, like feeling like we were winning in those sales meetings. I'm like, I want to do more to help us win more, because we kept coming in second. We wanted to come in first. So what can I do for us to win more?
Yeah.
And there are people like me out there that feel like they're being held back or not sure what they want to do, have so many thoughts, not sure how to organize them. I would definitely, I can't tell you the way, but I can tell you what I'm doing and all the opportunities about Naya. I would be willing to share, because Ngozi did that for me, and it has done so much. Like, I'm on your podcast and I've been behind the scenes and no one even knew who I was. And so now, people know who I am, even at Naya. So this is huge, and I want to spread the love.
Well, look, we appreciate you, on this platform. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to just get to know you as a colleague and a friend. And, I know that for you, even where you are now, like, your voice is just going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger in this industry. And the story is just so powerful. And I think that, anyone who listens to this entire conversation, they really are going to be inspired, by the journey, by overcoming those obstacles, by, finding other ways and getting creative, and also just staying the course, right? Because at many times throughout the last 22 years, you could have said, you know what, forget this. I'm doing something else. Forget this. But staying the course. Yes. Staying the course, and ultimately you'll get to where you want to be. I mean, this could be a film, you know what I mean? It's like, there could be a whole film going from this. But I was going to ask you, what encouraging words, you had for someone who might be looking at the space. And I think you shared some of that, but here's what I want to do. I want to make sure that people know, look, on the link in the interview, whether you're on Spotify or on YouTube, watching us, you'll be able to see Natasha. We're gonna make sure we have your LinkedIn post there so people can actually reach out to you.
There you go. Maybe I need to make it customized. I don't know if it is or not. See, that's my age right there. I this technology stuff.
It is Natasha Dorsey. I think it's Natasha Dorsey BDS. We'll make sure that is there though. Just look for the Natasha that's in Baltimore. That's in Baltimore.
I'm not there anymore. I'm from Baltimore.
Oh, from Baltimore. Okay, Maryland. Yeah. Because there is another Natasha Dorsey on LinkedIn, I think in California too. But you're the only insurance one. I think you're the only one on the employee benefits side. And when they find you, they'll know they found you. But Look, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your message. If you are listening, to this conversation, and you might be in the same situation. I mean, look, you might be working for a company that you don't really know everything that they do. You might be in the data entry, like, oh yeah, I'm working for this company, and it might be some major Fortune 500, insurance corporation where there's another opportunity that's waiting for you, but it's waiting for you to go get it. Nobody may not say anything to you about it. You might have to be the one to take that initiative. And if you do what Ms. Dorsey just told you, maybe you heard something in this conversation that made you say, you should get a license.
You should get a license. I'm going to get the one.
Hey, have a great one. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.